Today was a pretty interesting day for me. I don't know about you. I started off at 5:30 this morning and then it got busy. I mean, really busy until about 3:30. And then I took a bit of a break. So that was my day today. So pretty busy, but there you are then. So let's get on with our reading, shall we? Today's reading is called Predicated on Oneness. And the first quote is from an ancient Taoist scripture. I looked it up. It's kind of about meditation, how to meditate. I looked up the spelling. It's spelled N-E-I-J, sorry, N-E-I-Y-E, and it's pronounced Naya. Naya. Probably somewhere in that region. Anyway, what's the point? What does this ancient Taoist scripture say? It says, can you embrace the one, capitalized, and not lose it? Can you cease seeking it in others and seek it within yourself? And let's see, Ernest Holmes, also speaking of oneness, says, one, 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 in all, over all, and through all. And that was the Science of Mind textbook on page 323, Ernest Holmes. And this is Rev David Alexender, who says, in The Science of Mind, that's the textbook, Ernest Holmes writes, there is one life. That life is God, and that life is my life right now. He says, this is a foundational understanding that invites us to examine everything in our lives. Okay, what? Our relationships, our work, our practices, our pursuits, and so on. He says, through a single lens. Is this predicated on the recognition of oneness, not as a philosophical idea, but actually as a lived reality? In other words, are we practicing that, or we just say it and it sounds good? Non-duality reminds us that meaning is not inherent, but it's assigned. What does that mean? Well, he kind of explains it. He says, and through the divine gift of consciousness, we hold the power to shape our experience. And he says, if this is true, why will we assign meaning to things that promote fear, division, or suffering? Okay. So duality is, by definition, separation. There's this and there's that. Non-duality says that God is all there is. So explaining it in religious terms, if you believe in monotheism, there's one God, and that God is distant from you, then that's duality. There's two. There's God, and there's you. But in most esoteric practices, in most religions that just see the divine in everything, God is all there is. So science of mind, unity, any new thought, not new age, any new thought religion would agree with that. Almost all of the people who ascribe to themselves the term mystic would also agree with that, whatever religion they are, whether they are Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, whatever they are, would ascribe to that, and it's called monism as opposed to monotheism. In other words, God is all there is. I'm not separate from God. God is not separate from me. There is only one. And that one is in and through and has everything. So let me just tell you what he goes on to say, and then I'll give you some more thoughts on this. He says, to live predicated on the recognition of oneness is to begin each day with an inner commitment. I'm quoting here, I will place my energy only in that which honors the wholeness of all, unquote. He says, this is not about spiritual bypass or denying the pain of the world. In other words, we're not saying that the world isn't real, that it's Maya. You know, some religious interpretations, some spiritual interpretations would say that what you see all around you is not real, it's unreal. And then it's kind of an invention of our minds, and it truly isn't there. We just think it's there. No, he's saying there is reality. but that reality is encompassed within oneness. So he says, it's about meeting that pain, that division, as love itself. So acknowledging that there is pain in the world, there is suffering in the world, but then see into that love. He says it's a conscious refusal to energize separation. We are one with everything that is. We're not apart from it. He says, from this awareness, we become less seduced to participate in systems, conversations, or thoughts that reinforce otherness. We become more attuned to what is eternally real, to the indivisible wholeness behind all appearances. And in the words of Ernest Holmes, the highest attitude of mind from which all else springs is one of perfect calm and absolute trust in the Spirit. That Spirit's not separate. It is what we are. Predicated on the recognition of oneness, everything changes because everything has always been that. So is it easy for human beings to understand this? No, because, at this level, we're finite beings and we are trying to grasp something which is really beyond our understanding, at least for now. So there's one. That's all there is. So you're kind of involved in everything that happens in some way, shape, or form. Each and every one of us is involved in everything that happens in the world, either in a minute way or a major way. It's like the old expression that says a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the globe can cause a hurricane or a typhoon on the other side of the globe. Everything is interconnected and everything affects everything else. So they've proved in meditation, they've had periods of time when they've got lots of groups of people together. They've meditated on peace for certain cities, certain areas, and for a period of time when they're meditating, there's been major changes that have promoted peace. Because, as I said, everything's connected. We are part of the human race. We're part of the human divine subjective, the human subjective mind and the universal subjective mind. So everything we think, we feel, we do has some kind of impact on everything else. That once we realize that we're not separate from everything else, that our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, in some way, shape, or form impacts everything, then that ought to change the way we think, we feel, and we act. So that is my summary of what's going on here. I give my energy only to what reflects unity, wholeness, and love. So he's saying, when all the crud comes up and you start thinking it, let it go. Just think about stuff that you want to bring in and throw out the other stuff that's not good. So and I'll tell you one thing, I mean, everybody to some extent, falls short on this. I remember one nun that she was a very decent person actually, and apparently she got upset with people on the road, and she said sometimes the way they drive, you sometimes wish you had a flamethrower to shoot at the other vehicle. I mean, I'm sure she didn't really mean it, but that was her frustration coming out. But you know what I mean. It's really easy. Reverend Jesse had a good way of putting it. If somebody cuts you off on the road, it can mean lots and lots of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're just rude and don't care about anybody else. They could be in a major hurry, or they could have suffered something major in their life and they're not paying attention because of it. In other words, when we stop judging, we start enjoying life more ourselves, and we start putting good stuff into the human group mind. So, okay. Reverend Lisa will be on tomorrow morning at 9:15. Creative Life Spiritual Center's Facebook page. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully around about 5 o'clock. And until next time, I really enjoy these readings. As I said, I don't always agree with them. I don't always agree with everything in them, but I learn it makes me think, and it makes me feel, and it makes me be alive again. So it's a great privilege to be able to read this stuff and then read it out, because when I read it out again, I get it for a second time and a third time sometimes. And sometimes when my technology doesn't work, I get it for 5 times. So, but anyway, remember, oneness. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Everywhere we are, God is, and all is well. Until next time, namaste.